Hi, it's Katrina. Cuneiform tablets. During the summer of 2017, archaeologists from Germany unearthed 92 clay tablets in the village of Bathhouse in Iraq. This discovery may hold the key to finding an ancient lost city. Found inside a pottery vessel carefully covered in clay, it looks like whoever put the tablets there meant to store them and keep them safe for the future. The tablets date back to the Middle Assyrian Empire around 1250 BC and have been painstakingly read and translated by Dr. Bettina Feist from the University of Heidelberg. She was able to identify that the cuneiform texts reveal the location of a powerful city called Mardaman, mentioned in old Babylonian sources. This evidence provides an inkling of where Mardaman might be. Other ancient sources mention the city, which dates back between 2200 and 1200 BC, and it had a rich history as a kingdom and provincial center that was periodically conquered or destroyed, according to an official statement regarding the tablet's discovery. This city can be traced to the early days of the Mesopotamian civilization and rose to become greatly influential and a regional kingdom. Over the centuries, it was conquered several times because everyone wanted it due to its important location and trade routes between Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and Syria. While at the time it was super famous, over the years the actual location was lost. Based on these tablets, the location where they were found is actually the lost city of Mardaman. Now known as the clay tablets of Bathhouse, they have made a huge contribution to our understanding of the history of Mesopotamia and have even revealed clues to the locations of other lost cities. The map of the ancient world is coming together, although there is still a lot to learn and many mysteries to untangle. A lost kingdom. While investigating an ancient mound called Turkmen Karahoyuk in central Turkey in 2019, archaeologists ran into a local farmer who had something interesting to show them. He led them to a recently dredged nearby canal where a strange ancient stone block or stele with mysterious carvings was sticking up out of the water. The team immediately entered the waist-deep water to examine the clearly ancient artifact, which bears an inscription in a regional Bronze and Iron Age language called Luwian. Translators examined the hieroglyphs and determined that the text bragged of the defeat of Phrygia, a major historical military victory that happened roughly 3,000 years ago. There were several Phrygian kings named Midas, but the carving speaks of the most famous among them, the one you know with the golden touch. Another king, Hartapu, made sure to spread the message, which implies that his forces kidnapped Midas. Very little is known about King Hartapu or his kingdom, making this discovery especially significant. The stele suggests that Turkmen Karahoyuk may have been Hartapu's capital city, and that it may have occupied an area as large as 300 acres at its peak. "We had no idea about this kingdom," archaeologist James Osborne said in a statement, adding, "In a flash, we had profound new information on the Iron Age Middle East." This is about all experts know until they conduct more research into the artifact and the area it was found in, including the mound, which Osborne believes contains a plethora of ancient structures, including houses, monuments, and palaces. Dinosaur Footprint. While walking along a beach near Bendrix Bay in South Wales recently with her dad and pet dog, a 4-year-old girl made an amazing discovery. Lily Wilder spotted an extremely well-preserved dinosaur footprint that experts believe may be up to 220 million years old. In a telephone interview with NBC, Lily's mother Sally said it was on a low rock, shoulder height for Lily, and she just spotted it and said, "Look, Daddy." She is really excited but doesn't quite grasp how amazing it is. I mean, she is only 4. Lily's father snapped photos of the discovery and showed them to family members, prompting the little girl's grandmother to urge them to notify local experts of the fascinating footprint. Cindy Howells, a paleontology curator at the National Museum of Wales, told NBC that the dinosaur who left the footprint behind was about 8 feet long and likely a little under 30 inches tall. She described the creature's appearance as slender, adding that it likely walked on its 2 hind legs, had a tail, and hunted small animals and insects. But scientists do not know what kind of dinosaur made the footprint, despite how intact it is, and they will never know for sure, even if they can reasonably speculate. While there were no bones found with the print, similar footprints discovered in the U.S. were connected to a dinosaur called the Coelophysis, pointing toward one possible candidate for what type of creature created the footprint. Despite the uncertainty regarding the dinosaur species, the footprint may still have a lot to teach scientists, especially when it comes to learning about how these ancient animals walked. The fossil was removed from the site and taken to the National Museum of Cardiff, where it will be displayed for everyone to enjoy. Roman military bathhouse. The Roman Empire's northern reaches once extended to the modern-day English city of Carlisle. It is there, near the River Eden and Hadrian's Wall, that in 2017 archaeologists discovered the remains of a Roman military bathhouse dating back to the 3rd or 4th century. A local businessman named Fred Story teamed up with the Carlisle City Council to fund the excavations, and at least 90 volunteers pitched in to help with the dig. Experts believe that an elite cavalry used the bathhouse and that it may sit atop even older buildings. They also unearthed a hoard of Roman artifacts, including jewelry, a soldier's grave marker, and a stele bearing an inscription dedicated to the Empress Julia Domna. It's the highest status Roman find we've had in Carlisle and one of national significance, said archaeologist Frank Giecco, who led the excavation. He further explained, based on the building's large size, that Carlisle was the center of the Roman imperial court at some point during the reign of Emperor Septimius Severus, and while he was in Britain. Excavations are ongoing. At last update, archaeologists plan to demolish a disused tennis pavilion at the site in hopes of uncovering more artifacts. What they will find remains to be seen. A strange burial. During a routine excavation in the Leithport area of Edinburgh, Scotland, to prepare for a planned public transportation line, archaeologists found a medieval cemetery filled with the remains of hundreds of people. The team was shocked because there are no known records of anyone being buried at the site since the street that was right there was built in 1790. Consequently, the tram line's construction was cancelled and the experts dug deeper. Altogether, they unearthed over 380 burials, with the oldest among them dating as far back as the 14th century. The newest graves are from around 1650, right before the cemetery closed. Since then, plans for the tram extension have been reinstated and excavations resumed. After COVID-19 restrictions were lifted last year, another 359 skeletons were found, bringing the total number of bodies discovered at the site to over 750. The graveyard constitutes one of the largest burials from its time period ever found in Scotland, as well as the largest collection of skeletons in Edinburgh. The next step is for researchers to analyze the skeletons in hopes of learning more about who the deceased individuals are and what their lives were like. One separate isolated burial found beneath the other graves has been the focal point of the ongoing project. The lone individual, who appears to be female, was found in a pit measuring 33 feet across and 10 to 13 feet deep. She was buried in a crouching position and facing in a different direction than the traditional supine or lying upward Christian burials of the time, which faced west to east. The grave likely predates the rest of the remains in the cemetery, and it seems to have nothing in common with any medieval features at the site or nearby, but experts are unsure how old the burial is or the circumstances of the woman's life or death. They plan to conduct radiocarbon dating and isotopic analysis to learn more. Headless statues. Greece's Ministry of Culture and Sports recently announced that archaeologists discovered headless marble statues of a woman and her servant in an ancient Greek cemetery east of Athens, while conducting a routine excavation ahead of construction in Paeania. The statues date back to the 4th century BC and depict a woman sitting in an elaborate chair with a female servant standing next to her. The sculpture would have marked the seated woman's burial, but it was likely erected prior to 317 BC, when the Athenian governor Demetrius of Phaleron outlawed such lavish burial markers. Grave monuments like this were popular at the time and often featured families or masters with their slaves. In addition to not knowing who the women were, experts are also unsure why the statues' heads are missing. They found the monument in pieces, and it's likely that the heads were accurate portrayals of the women, as it was customary in ancient Greece to put idealized faces on graves, according to Olga Pelagia, a leading expert on ancient Greek sculpture. Excavations at the site are ongoing, and the statue was transported to the Archaeological Museum of Ravrona for safekeeping. It's possible that archaeologists may find more fragments, according to an official statement, which also announced that more artifacts are likely to be discovered at the site. Ilford. An East London neighborhood known as Ilford was once home to a diverse population of animals and humans, including lions, elephants, mammoths, Vikings, and witches. Located in the borough of Redbridge, its history of witchcraft dates back to the 17th century, and an active Wiccan community still lives there, where worshippers perform white magic spells in Hainault Forest. The area's long-standing history of witchcraft is evident in the numerous discoveries of witch bottles that have been found in Ilford, appearing everywhere from the downtown area to the banks of the River Roding, although it's important to point out that ordinary people also used witch bottles to protect themselves against bad spells. Going back even further, between 8000 BC and 410 AD, an array of animals could be found in Ilford. Before humans came to dominate the landscape, the area was occupied by bears, lions, large deer, bison, and oxen who roamed freely among the land. In 1140, a medical center for men called Ilford Hospital was built. Records also show that several centuries later, in 1560, Ilford was home to several leper cells, where patients with leprosy were relocated. Additionally, at least 22 bodies, some mutilated, were recovered in the vicinity, leading experts to believe that the deceased were victims of a Viking invasion, while others think that the unfortunate individuals were lepers. Archaeologists have found remains of Roman roads in Ilford, which was also occupied by the Normans and Saxons at times. In more recent centuries, Ilford has been a popular settling point for newly arrived immigrants, including people from Irish, Jewish, Asian, and Eastern European communities. Simply put, Ilford has been incredibly diverse from the start, and it seems as though experts will be continuously unraveling its history for some time to come. Priceless Roman coins. A team of archaeologists have unearthed a priceless trove of over 650 Roman coins at the Izanoy archaeological site in western Turkey. Lead archaeologist Elif Ozer told the Turkish news agency that the extremely rare coins date back to the time of the Emperor Augustus. While the site itself is around 5,000 years old, with different layers of settlement putting its origins at around 3000 BC, the hoard is likely from the final years of the Roman Republic period, before Rome transitioned into an empire around 27 BC. The coins consist of 439 silver Roman denarii, as well as 212 cistophorus coins, which were minted in the ancient Greek city of Pergamon. These silver coins are a coin album of the last century of the Roman Republic period, Ozer said, adding that it constitutes a very special and unique collection. The team who found the ancient money admittedly does not know who it belonged to, but speculates that it was the property of a high-ranking soldier. They discovered the coins inside a jug in an ancient waterway that crosses through the site as part of the Izanoy Penkalas project, which aims to transport visitors via sailboat, giving them a unique opportunity to sail the same routes that the Romans in the area once did. I'm up for that. In addition to the coin hoard, Izanoy is also home to a theater, a temple, and one of Anatolia's best-preserved temples, which is dedicated to the Olympian god Zeus, king of the Greek gods and god of the sky and thunder. Excavations at the UNESCO World Heritage Site, which was rediscovered in 1824, began over 9 years ago and are still ongoing. Ancient counting. In today's world, we write things down all the time, but researchers have long been trying to figure out why ancient civilizations developed writing systems in the first place, some of which remain undeciphered to this day. One of the most puzzling discoveries made along this pursuit is that of a large collection of 5,000-year-old clay tablets found in 1929 at Uruk, a Mesopotamian settlement located along the Euphrates River in modern-day Iraq. During its heyday, it only consisted of several thousand residents, but during its time, the site constituted one of the world's first real cities. Uruk was even mentioned in the famed Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the earliest written works ever. The tablet's text baffled experts at first. It took decades for researchers to decipher the markings, which were shaped like everyday objects like loaves of bread and jars. The first major headway was made during the 1970s, when French archaeologist Denis Schmont-Bisserat cataloged several artifacts, some dating as far back as 9,000 years. She theorized that the markings were used for an activity called correspondence counting. In other words, jar-shaped characters were used for counting jars, loaf-shaped characters were used for counting loaves, and so on. As it turns out, the practice of correspondence counting is incredibly old, going back even further than the founding of Uruk. Evidence of it has been discovered on artifacts as much as 20,000 years old, with some objects containing tally marks, while others bear more detailed characters. It seems as though prehistoric humans developed correspondence counting as they became more advanced and urbanized, and were met with an increasing demand for keeping track of their inventories. Iron Hand. Gotz von Berlichingen was a German mercenary during the 1500s, a soldier for hire who fought for the people who could afford him. During the battle in the year 1504, the 23-year-old lost his arm. Some rumors claim that the impact hit von B's sword, causing him to cut off his own arm, while others say that the cannonball itself hit him, but nobody knows for sure exactly what happened. During that time, the loss of an arm usually meant the end of your mercenary career, but the adventurous fighter was not willing to give up his fierce lifestyle, and he had to improvise for his missing arm. Soon after the battle, von Berlichingen began wearing an iron replacement limb, complete with a hand, created for him by an unknown maker. It was equipped with hinges that enabled the 4 fingers to curl inward and grasp a sword, and was decorated with carved fingernails and wrinkles along the knuckles. He continued on with his career and earned a more ruthless reputation than ever, not just as a mercenary but also as a gambler and a 16th century loan shark. Von B was also known, in the words of Dr. Sharon Rahm, who wrote about his career, as a Robin Hood who protected the peasants against their oppressors. He would kidnap nobles for ransom and attack merchants for their goods, and he became known as the Goths of the Iron Hand. Eventually, he upgraded to a newer, nicer prosthetic arm. His previous one had been a bit inflexible, but this one had jointed knuckles, which were better for gripping. He could fight, hold a sword, and the reins of his horse, no problem. Spring-loaded mechanisms inside the hand locked the fingers into place. It is now on display in a castle museum in his native town in Germany. Mud mummy. Scientists were baffled by the discovery of the only known ancient Egyptian mud mummy. The deceased individual is wrapped in hardened mud, which, in the researchers' words, is a mortuary treatment not previously documented in the Egyptian archaeological record. That means it's the first time. It's possible that the mummy was damaged and that its preparers used the technique to repair it. The mud wrapping may be an imitation of the elite practice of mummifying high-ranking members of society with imported materials made from resin, which was common from around 1294 BC to 945 BC, a time period that saw the transition from the New Kingdom to the 21st dynasty. Mud is a more affordable material, lead researcher Karen Sawada told Life Science. The mummy, which dates back to 1207 BC, somehow ended up in a much newer coffin meant for a young woman. But why? Sir Charles Nicholson, an English-Australian politician, acquired the mummy during the 19th century and donated it to the University of Sydney in 1860. Researchers believe that the dealers who sold Nicholson the mummy placed it into a mismatched coffin to make the set more complete, which fetched more money than selling the components separately. The coffin dates back to around 1000 BC, making it around 200 years younger than the mud mummy, and is inscribed with a woman's name, reading Merua or Meruta. The mud mummy appears to be a female who died between the ages of 26 and 35. Within a generation or two of her death, her remains were damaged, and someone, perhaps grave robbers, stabilized the body using the mud wrapping technique. The discovery is helping scientists better understand ancient Egyptian burial practices, and a reminder that there is still a lot we don't know. Cookie Monster rock. If you like rocks and gemstones like me, you're going to love this. A rock collector in Brazil has found an agate geode that, when it was cut open, looks just like Cookie Monster. The resemblance to the popular Sesame Street character Cookie Monster is uncanny, and pictures are going viral after Mike Bowers, a gem collector from California, posted footage of the unusual object on social media. It looks like it was made on purpose. No way this was made by nature. The video plays Cookie Monster's signature song, C is for Cookie, while revealing the interior of both pieces of the cut-open rock, which looks shockingly like the character's face. Cookie Monster's official Twitter account caught wind of the look-alike rock and tweeted in response, "Me no geologist, but me think that rock look a lot like me." Bowers bought the object from Brazil-based gemologist Lucas Vasari after it was found in Soledade, a gem hotspot in the southern part of the country. He reportedly received offers for as much as $10,000 for the rock, but plans to keep it in his cookie jar, he joked, at least for now. He is thinking that it will most likely end up in a museum or a high-end collection. It is extremely rare to find face shapes in agates, but with this example, it's just clear-cut, no doubt of what you're looking at. Another unique feature is that the face appears on both sides of the cut stone. Bauer says that it's not so common for the voids to be so symmetrical as to create a mirror image. The gem collector is surprised at how popular his post became. In a Live Science interview, he said, "I didn't realize that Cookie Monster was so well known and part of the world cultural heritage. Where has he been? Of course it's popular, and now everybody wants it." Prehistoric sea lizard. Scientists have identified a strange new mosasaur species that went extinct 66 million years ago. The small, seagoing lizard, dubbed Xenodens kaliminkari, lived in modern-day Morocco starting around 72 million years ago. It was roughly the size of a porpoise and had serrated, knife-like teeth that enabled the reptile to pursue a vast range of prey, cutting entire fish in half and biting large chunks out of bigger animals. This tiny terror of the day had chompers unlike the teeth of other reptiles and reminded lead study author Dr. Nick Longrich of the sleeper shark teeth he had observed during past fishing trips to Alaska. It's like a dolphin with shark teeth! Yikes! 66 million years ago, the coasts of Africa were the most dangerous seas in the world, Longrich said. He added predator diversity there was unlike anything seen anywhere else on the planet. Longrich explained that the newly discovered species adds to a growing list of marine reptiles that lived in the area during the late Cretaceous period, indicating that their diversity peaked shortly before the extinction event that killed them. This means that their ecosystem was thriving when the asteroid hit. Just can't catch a break. Giant jar tombs. In the city of Isfahan in central Iran, archaeologist Ali Reza Jafari Zand is leading a team in excavating a burial mound at a site called Tepe Ashraf, where they have found two unusual giant jar tombs. The discovery of the second one was based on a guess. These jar tombs offer valuable clues to uncover the history of pre-Islamic Isfahan. The jar tombs are what they sound like, giant vessels with someone buried inside, dating back around 2,000 years ago. The dig is ongoing, and Jafari Zand suspects that the hill may contain a Parthian-era cemetery dating back to sometime between 247 BC and 224 AD, when the Parthians ruled the region. The team found several other pre-Islamic artifacts at the site, including a stone well in the shape of a square from the Sassanid Empire that ruled the area following the Parthian collapse. Other dynasties that came after also used the structures in the area, leaving behind many archaeological artifacts. Isfahan has been continuously inhabited for thousands of years and once served as an important center of international trade and diplomacy. The modern city was built right on top, and the excavations of these hills and mounds will help to reveal more fascinating finds like tombs in jars. Sexy fresco. It's not necessarily surprising that ancient people enjoyed erotic imagery, but some of these discoveries are kind of strange. During excavations at the ancient Roman city of Pompeii in 2018, archaeologists uncovered a well-preserved fresco depicting a love scene between Leda, the legendary Spartan queen, and a swan. The bird represents the Greek god Zeus, known as Jupiter to the Romans, and the picture is from a story about him impregnating Leda while in disguise. You know those gods were sneaky. The fresco was found inside an upscale townhouse along a road called the Via del Vesuvio. Researchers believe the dwelling belonged to a wealthy merchant who, like some others at the time, enjoyed displaying mythical images as a sign of affluence. According to legend, Zeus assumed swan form and fled into Leda's arms to escape a predatory eagle. He seduced the married woman, who also slept with her husband, the Spartan king Tyndareus, the same night. As a result, 4 children were hatched from 2 eggs. 2 were from Zeus, a boy named Pollux, and the famous Helen of Troy. The other 2 children, fathered by Tyndareus, were named Castor and Clytemnestra. This rendition of Leda and the swan is unique among the examples of the fairly popular image that have been discovered throughout ancient Rome. In most versions, Leda is standing, but in the newly discovered one, she is seated. The depiction also shows her and the swan in the actual act, which is uncommon, and Leda is painted to make direct eye contact with someone entering the room. This is just one of many fascinating artifacts and structures that continue to be discovered as archaeologists excavate the city, offering a first-hand look at what life there was like before volcanic ash buried Pompeii in 79 AD. Asia's oldest forest. A 2019 study published in the journal Current Biology revealed the discovery of strange fossilized tree trunks making up the oldest forest ever found in Asia. Paleobotanists Deming Wang and Min Qin found the spindly fossils in 2016 near the town of Qinhang in China's Anhui province while examining the walls of the Jianchuan clay mine. They named the 365-million-year-old palm tree-like trees Guangdodendron. Occupying an area measuring at least 62 acres, around the same size as 47 American football fields, the trees grew in an area that at the time was prone to coastal flooding. These non-flowering plants grew straight upward, had leafy crowns and trunks with no branches, and shed megaspores instead of seeds. On average, they reached 10.5 feet tall, although the tallest fossilized specimen discovered was an estimated 25.3 feet tall. The density and small size of the trees would make the Qinhang forest very similar to a sugarcane field. Scientists don't know much about the environment the trees lived in, but hope to learn more through further research and exploration. Urbanomonte map. In 1587, an Italian mapmaker named Urbanomonte created a map on 60 sheets of paper and bound them together as an atlas. Little is known about the man from Milan, who came from a wealthy family and lived during a time of heightened interest in geography, stemming from the increasing exploration of the world. In creating his atlas, Monte gleaned information from those created by cartographers like Gerardus Mercator and Abraham Ortelius, according to National Geographic, and incorporated recently discovered territories like Tierra del Fuego, located at the southern tip of South America. Additionally, Monte's depiction of Japan is more detailed than others from the time, because when the first official Japanese delegation traveled to Milan in 1585, they met with him and were able to tell him firsthand. The map's empty spaces contain drawings of animals, ships, royalty, including King Philip II of Spain seated upon a throne, and even mermen and unicorns. Monte's use of projection, in other words, to portray the globe on a flat surface, is unusual for maps of the time. Known as polar azimuthal projection, it shows the North Pole in the map's center, with longitudinal lines radiating outward, a technique that did not become popular until the 20th century. Map collector David Rumsey, who purchased Monte's map and donated it to the David Rumsey Map Center at Stanford University, told National Geographic that he believes the 16th century cartographer was trying to demonstrate the Earth's round shape. In late 2017, Rumsey's nephew Brandon pieced each page of the atlas together to form one large map, measuring over 9 feet by 9 feet. It was the first time in 430 years since the map was created that anyone had seen it as a complete picture. Wolf-sized otter. 6 million years ago, in the swampy habitat of what is now southwestern China, lived a 100-pound otter with powerful jaws that made it much stronger than today's otters, who knock sea urchins against stones to break them open. Named Cyamogale melilutra, it was able to bite right into mollusks like eating potato chips. Scientists first identified and described the prehistoric species in 2017, after fossilized evidence was discovered in China's Yunnan province. A study of the creature determined that the gigantic otter was a late Miocene apex predator whose teeth and jaws were capable of crushing a wide variety of prey. We still think it probably consumed mollusks, but at a level of capability that's way beyond what we see in living otters, study leader Zi Jiaqzheng told National Geographic. Today, there are 2 types of otters, including molluscivores, which feast on mollusks, and piscivores, who eat fish. The researchers who reported their findings in the journal Scientific Reports initially assumed that the molluscivores have stiffer jaws, which bend less as they chew and are more efficient for chomping on hard objects like invertebrate shells. But by examining the skulls of modern specimens, they learned, much to their surprise, that jaw stiffness relates to size, with smaller jaws being stiffer. Yet S. melilutra had massively strong jaws that were 6 times stiffer than the team would have predicted based on its body size. It chewed through much harder and tougher shellfish than its modern counterparts. Today's otters have learned to use stone tools to crack open shells, which could be why their jaws are not as strong in ratio to their body size as that of S. melilutra. Other researchers agree that the team's findings make sense, although there is admittedly not enough fossil evidence of prehistoric otters to be sure. It's even believed that the anatomy of human skulls changed as we adapted to tool use, making the application of the concept to otters not so far-fetched. An ancient temple. The submerged ancient Egyptian city and once bustling trade port of Heraklion was discovered roughly 2 decades ago, about 148 feet beneath the surface of the Mediterranean Sea. Called Egypt's Atlantis, this lost city is full of mystery. It is difficult to get to, and the waters are quite murky. Even now, with our sophisticated equipment, diving in the cloudy depths is dangerous business. Much of what we have found has been thanks to scanning tools. In August 2019, though, divers went down to explore the remains of a large temple. As they approached, the columns loomed above them in the dark, and they also found remains of old ships sitting like ghosts on the bottom. Good news is they were packed with coins and jewelry. Underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio, who led the first underwater exploration of Heraklion, headed this more recent dive, during which the team found stone columns from Amun Garp, the city's main temple. The recent discovery shows that much of the site remains unexplored due to thousands of years of sedimentary buildup. In addition to the temple remains, the divers found bronze coins from King Ptolemy II's reign, which lasted from 283 to 246 BC, Byzantine-era coins, pottery, jewelry, and storage utensils. This site is still revealing secrets many years later, and there is probably much more to be discovered. Evidence suggests that Heraklion was inhabited as early as the 4th century BC, and many scholars believe it was founded as far back as the 8th century BC. Historians are unsure how the entire city became submerged over 1,000 years ago, but they believe that it resulted from a combination of rising sea levels, seismic activity, and crumbling foundations. Hadrian's breakfast chamber. During the 2nd century AD, the Roman Emperor Hadrian enjoyed a life of luxury alongside his empress, Vibia Sabina. One of their properties, named Villa Adriana, was a 200-acre complex of over 30 buildings in modern-day Tivoli, Italy, where they may have eaten breakfast on an elegant marble platform, surrounded by flowing water while retractable bridges separated them from their many servants. Spanish archaeologists recently discovered this dining room known as a water triclinium, which served as a place for Roman elites to gather for fine dining and drinking. It is here, atop a pool and with water fountains in the background, that Hadrian would have entertained private guests. The platform was connected to bedchambers and latrines decorated with precious stones. Hadrian is historically known for his taste in the finer things. He commissioned the construction of Villa Adriana as an ideal city, with theaters, libraries, gardens, pools, a palace, and more. In addition to the triclinium, archaeologists recently discovered a separate outdoor banquet space containing a crocodile-shaped fountain and other elaborate decor. Egyptian beer factory. The world's oldest known beer factory may have just been found at an ancient burial ground in Abydos, Egypt, over 280 miles south of Cairo. Located in the desert west of the Nile River, the factory dates back to the beginning of the First Dynastic period, which lasted from 3150 BC to 2613 BC, and was marked by the unification of ancient Egypt under King Narmer. In a statement, Egypt's Antiquities Ministry said that British archaeologists first mentioned the factory's existence during the early 20th century, but were unaware of its exact location. The site consists of 8 massive basins, each measuring roughly 65 feet by 8 feet and containing 40 or so pottery basins arranged in 2 rows, which were used for heating a grain and water mixture to produce beer, according to Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. The factory was producing about 22,400 liters of beer at a time, and it may have been built in this place specifically to supply the royal rituals that were taking place inside the funeral facilities of the kings of Egypt, Dr. Matthew Adams, a researcher from the New York University's Institute of Fine Arts, explained in a ministry statement. The ancient beer factory adds to a growing list of recent discoveries that the Egyptian government hopes will revive its ailing tourism industry. Prehistoric cattle bone carvings. A team of French and Israeli researchers have discovered an engraved bone fragment dating back an estimated 120,000 years at Nesher Ramla, a Middle Paleolithic site in Israel. The bone, which experts believe belonged to an extinct cattle species called the auroch, bears 6 incisions measuring between 1.5 and 1.7 inches long, which may have had a symbolic or spiritual meaning. It was found at a site that perhaps served as a meeting place where Paleolithic hunters slaughtered animals. The carver may have made their markings using the flint tools that were discovered alongside the bone, according to the Jerusalem Post. 3D imaging and microscopic analysis verified that the carvings are man-made and suggest that the person who created them was right-handed. Researchers are unsure what the engravings mean. While it's possible that someone made them while butchering the animal, this is unlikely, as the markings are somewhat parallel, indicating that they were cut deliberately. The lines were made in one session, suggesting that their creator was not marking events over time, and the bone was found buried face up, although it's unknown if this placement is important or not. The findings, detailed in a newly published study, describe the engravings as the oldest known example of this form of messaging that was used in the Levant. Moreover, the team wrote that they believe the use of an auroch bone demonstrated the animal's status within the community and the spiritual connection between hunters and their prey. Sword of Henry VIII. During the early 16th century, Pope Leo X gifted an extremely unique sword to the infamous King Henry VIII of England. The Pope honored King Henry for his military actions in France to stop Catholic heresy, and for writing in defense of the 7 Sacraments, where he strongly refutes the heresies of Martin Luther. Henry VIII became known as the Defender of the Faith. The silver-plated weapon has a cross hilt and a silver and crystal handle, which was designed to hold a relic of some sort, rumored to be a piece of bone from St. Peter. Although the sword never served an official purpose, and despite King Henry VIII's massive weapons collection, he seemed to always prize the sword, even after he parted ways with the Catholic Church. Things turned ugly when Henry still had no heir and the Church wouldn't allow him to change wives. Pope Clement VII sent Henry a letter forbidding him to remarry under penalty of excommunication. He went on to abandon Catherine of Aragon and married Anne Boleyn, and in the process created the Church of England amidst much warfare and conflict. The sword from Henry's Catholic days is currently on display at the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. Pre-Columbian Alaskan beads. A controversial discovery of some European beads found in Alaska may change history. Blue glass beads from Europe were unearthed by archaeologists that may predate Christopher Columbus's arrival to the New World. The research published in the journal American Antiquity found that the blueberry-sized beads were likely made in Venice during the 15th century. They then made their way eastward via trade, traveling 10,500 miles across Eurasia and to Alaska via the Bering Strait. The findings are hotly contested, with opposing standpoints claiming that the beads are old but not pre-Columbian. Elliot Blair, an assistant professor of anthropology at the University of Alabama, argued that the beads can't be as old as the study claims because they were not being made in Europe that far back. Instead, he said, they likely date back to the 16th or 17th century. Even with this later dating, an early 17th century date for these beads is still much earlier than first documented contact between Alaska natives and Europeans, Blair told Life Science. Danish explorer Vitus Bering was the first known modern European explorer to make contact with Alaska natives when he voyaged there in 1741. Altogether, 10 of the blue beads have been found across 3 archaeological sites in Arctic Alaska, along with items like copper bracelets, iron pendants, twine, animal bones, and charcoal. The study's researchers dated the twine, charcoal, and some caribou bones to sometime between 1397 and 1488, long before Columbus arrived in the New World, leading them to believe that the beads may be as old as the organic materials. Furthermore, the beads are made from soda glass, a material commonly used in 15th century Venetian manufacture, according to the team. If these suspicions are correct, the beads would constitute not only the oldest known beads of their type, but the oldest known European products to make their way to North America. Myra figurines. Archaeologists recently discovered dozens of terracotta figurines in the ancient town of Myra, located in modern-day Demre, Turkey. Dating back over 2,000 years, the collection provides remarkable insight into life at Myra, a significant ancient settlement in the Mediterranean region of Lycia that thrived during the 1st and 2nd centuries BC. Some of the figurines bear inscriptions and others have paint on them. Excavation leader Nevzat Cevic and his team found the artifacts while unearthing a Roman-era theater. Beneath the structure, they uncovered a smaller theater dating back to the Hellenistic period, between 323 and 30 BC, which contained the terracotta artifacts. In a Life Science interview, Cevic described the figurines as an unexpected big surprise. They depict human men and women, including a woman holding a child, a boy with fruit, and a horseman, as well as deities like Artemis, Heracles, Aphrodite, Apollo, and Leto. The presence of the figurines, as well as votive plates and incense containers, indicates that they may have been discarded at the site as part of a cultic ritual. Additionally, the team found various ceramic, bronze, lead, and silver objects. Excavations are ongoing, and the terracotta figurines will be displayed at the Andriache Lycian Civilizations Museum in Antalya. Aztec Eagle. Earlier this year, archaeologists with Mexico's National Institute of Anthropology and History reported the discovery of a stunning 600-year-old Aztec bas-relief sculpture depicting a golden eagle. They found the incredible artwork in the Templo Mayor, or the Great Temple, an ancient pyramid-shaped structure in the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, located in modern-day Mexico City. Golden eagles represented war and sacrifice to the Aztecs and was the symbol of one of the culture's elite warriors. It was also associated with the sun god Huitzilopochtli, as the Aztecs believed that the golden eagle was present at the sun's birth. The raised image, which measures roughly 3.5 feet long by 27.5 inches, was carved from stone into the temples during the mid-15th century reign of Moctezuma I, the second Aztec emperor and the city's 5th king. It's located near a circular building called the Coajicalco, whose name means Place of the Eagle's Gourd. According to 16th century documents, this is where past rulers were ritually cremated. It was found in February 2020 as part of an ongoing excavation project at Templo Mayor, which was located in the center of Tenochtitlan and served as the center of Aztec culture. The bas-relief is the largest among 67 similar depictions found throughout the temple. Ancient mosque. In the northern Israeli city of Tiberias, near the Sea of Galilee, archaeologists have uncovered one of the earliest mosques on record. It dates back roughly 1,350 years to the late 7th century, just a few decades after the Prophet Muhammad died. Archaeologists found remnants of the building beneath a mosque that had been built on top of it. Many historic mosques are built over and are still used for worship to this day, meaning researchers cannot excavate them. But the mosque in Tiberias is no longer used, providing a rare opportunity for archaeologists to explore its remains, which consist only of the building's foundations and associated artifacts, including coins and pottery fragments. Excavation leader Katja Citrin-Silverman explained in a Live Science interview that the mosque was discovered back in the 1950s, but experts initially mistook it as a Byzantine-era market. She noticed that the site structures resembled the Great Mosque of Damascus, which dates back to the early 8th century, leading the team to determine that the 72 by 160-foot main building is, in fact, a mosque. Over the years, excavations have procured broken roof tiles from when an earthquake collapsed the mosque in 1068, as well as bronze chains that once held glass lamps. The discovery of the simple structure, which was located near much grander Jewish and Christian houses of prayer, indicates that Islamization occurred gradually in the city and that the rulers practiced religious tolerance, even after Muslims conquered Tiberias in 635. A tombstone found at the site suggests that the mosque was used until the 900s. Stonehenge Graves. While conducting routine excavations ahead of the construction of a road tunnel near Stonehenge, archaeologists discovered ancient graves dating back 4,500 years, as well as a strange earth enclosure, prehistoric pottery, and other artifacts. UK authorities commissioned experts to survey the 2-mile stretch where they plan to build the tunnel. The team made their finds using traditional methods such as digging pits and geophysical survey equipment. The graves are thought to belong to individuals from the mysterious Beaker culture, who were named for the bell-shaped pottery vessels that they buried their dead with, and lived in Western Europe between 4,800 and 3,800 years ago. One burial belongs to a baby who was laid to rest alongside a pot, and another contained the crouched remains of a woman who died in her 20s, who was also buried with a pot. Both graves are roughly the same age as the smaller blue stones at Stonehenge, according to Matt Levers, a consultant archaeologist for Wessex Archaeology who spoke with Live Science. Additionally, the team found buried collections of flints, pottery vessels, deer antlers, and more. Stonehenge was built over a very long period of time. Even individual phases of its construction could have taken years or decades to complete, Levers said, adding it's entirely conceivable that the people who left those things behind or who were buried nearby had some role in Stonehenge's construction. To the south of the graves, the team found a Middle to Late Bronze Age enclosure made up of buried ditches, dating back an estimated 3,500 years. They also discovered ditches that may have been part of Vespasian's camp, an Iron Age fort named after the Roman general and emperor who led a force during the Roman invasion of Britain after 43 AD. Iron Age houses. Archaeologists were shocked when they discovered over a dozen Iron Age roundhouses and a Roman villa while performing excavations ahead of the redevelopment of the visitor centre at Whittenham Clumps, a famous landmark in Oxfordshire, England. When asked whether the team had high hopes going into the project, Lisa Westcott-Wilkins of Dig Adventures told The Guardian, "We hoped. You never really know for sure, but honestly, it is astonishing that so much evidence has come up of people's actual daily lives. It's been one of those digs where you feel you can almost reach out and touch them." The roundhouses date back between 400 BC and 100 BC, and the villa was built during the late 3rd or early 4th century AD. Each roundhouse measures roughly 33 feet in diameter and was inhabited by farmers. The villa is only partially excavated because it surpasses the designated work area. The team uncovered at least 2 Roman cemeteries containing stone corn-drying ovens and over 40 burials. Additionally, they found pottery shards, surgical instruments, Roman combs made out of bone, and Iron Age pots. Once the dig is complete, the organization hopes to create 3 life-sized Iron Age roundhouses, offering visitors a glimpse at what the settlement looked like during its heyday. Maine Penny. Also known as the Goddard coin, the Maine Penny is a Norwegian silver coin dating back to sometime between 1067 and 1093 AD. The strange thing about the artifact is that it was found on the Maine shoreline in 1957, serving as evidence that the Vikings beat Columbus to North America by several hundred years. By now, researchers have found that this is certainly the case, as proved by Viking sites discovered in Newfoundland and Labrador Province in Canada. But the only Viking evidence to appear in the United States so far is the Maine Penny. So how did it get there, and why, if it's not accompanied by any Viking settlements or other ruins? The coin's discoverers, amateur archaeologists Guy Melgren and Ed Runge, found the artifact while searching the coastal property of someone named Goddard, a stranger who apparently gave the men permission to search his land for valuable objects. Besides the penny, the pair also found numerous Native American artifacts, including stone chips, knives, and fire pits. So how is a Norse coin thrown into the mix? One plausible theory is that it ended up in the hands of an indigenous tribe through trade. If this is the case, it means that the Vikings not only beat other Europeans to the so-called New World, but that they interacted with Native Americans long before other Europeans did. Another, less appealing possibility is that the coin itself is authentic, but that its alleged placement along the Maine coast is the product of a hoax, perhaps by the coin's discoverers themselves. Nobody knows for sure. Pompeii trinkets. In 2019, archaeologists at Pompeii discovered a wooden box full of odds and ends, including jewelry, glass beads, charms, and other small miscellaneous items. The collection, which they found in a structure called the House of the Garden, gives researchers insight into the feminine side of ancient Rome. Among the contents are 2 mirrors, several necklace fragments, phallic charms, a humanoid doll, and pieces of bronze, bone, and amber. They are objects of everyday life in the female world and are extraordinary because they tell micro-stories, biographies of the inhabitants of the city who try to escape the eruption, said Massimo Ossana, director of the Archaeological Park of Pompeii. Also in the House of the Garden, the team found a room filled with 10 victims of the eruption, including women and children. The items may have belonged to one of these victims, according to Ossana. Whoever owned them was likely of high social standing based on the high quality of the amber and glass objects. Over 1,500 residents of Pompeii and Herculaneum perished when nearby Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD and buried the cities in volcanic ash. The sites were rediscovered during the 18th century, and archaeologists are still unearthing their contents. Dinosaur egg. A large and scaly object was found in an Arkansas field back in 2020, and nobody is completely sure what it is. Pictures of the supposed dragon egg were posted by the Arkansas History Unearthed Facebook group, showing a peculiar large egg, more than 2 feet in length and apparently of some reptilian origin. The photo got quite a bit of attention and responses, some wanting to know if it had a heartbeat or if it was soft enough to cut open. Several concerned comments warned the finder not to bring it inside. It definitely appeared to be either a piece of fossilized dinosaur waste, a prehistoric dragon egg that could hatch with the right spell and a bit of fire, or maybe a giant mushroom. However, it may also not be an egg at all. According to a man named James Starnes, the director of surface geology at the Mississippi Office of Geology, what most people think is an egg is actually something known as a septarian nodule or a septarian concretion. Sadly, it is not a fossilized dragon egg, but a fancy piece of rock in the shape of an egg made to trick you into thinking they're magic. These types of nodules form in muddy sediment and then develop over thousands and thousands of years. Septarian nodules are also referred to as dragonstone, since they do look so much like a real dragon or dinosaur egg. Mummified puppy snacks. Researchers were shocked to discover well-preserved animal samples inside of an ancient puppy. Scientists actually found rhino remains, indicating that during the Ice Age, ancient dogs were somehow hunting giant woolly rhinoceroses. The discovery was announced in the journal Current Biology. The Ice Age puppy was found in the permafrost in Siberia and is almost perfectly preserved. Dating back to 18,000 years ago, they have named him Dogor, which is a Yakutian word for friend. So far, his puppy DNA is neither dog nor wolf, so he is most likely an ancestor to both. Scientists believe that the puppy munched on the woolly rhinoceros, then fell into a snowy crevice and was buried by the snow, thus never being able to fully digest its snack. But what does all this information mean? Well, what scientists have been able to extrapolate from the information is that Ice Age dogs probably worked together in large scavenging packs, kind of like wolves, hunting in such large numbers that they were able to take down massive game like woolly rhinos. The Great Wall sacrifices. A giant walled settlement near a step pyramid at the Chinese archaeological site of Shimao, a place which for decades scientists simply thought was part of the Great Wall of China, is beginning to reveal its secrets. It turns out that the walled settlement here actually predates the Great Wall, which was built on top. Researchers now know that Shimao was the hub of an ancient civilization somewhere around 2300 BC. The complex of structures is quite unique. The step pyramid was very sophisticated for its time. The entrance had designs suggesting that they were intended to provide both defense and highly restricted access. It was at least 70 meters tall, which meant that it could be seen from anywhere in the local area. Some even say that it could have been one of the largest centers in the world for its day and age, though now almost all knowledge of the civilization has been lost. One thing we do know is that they practiced ritualistic sacrifice. This evidence comes from 6 pits found at the site from the Bronze Age filled with decapitated human heads, all belonging to young women. Thousands of jade objects such as axes and scepters were also found nearby, indicating that this was some sort of powerful religious ritual. An ancient kingdom in the backyard. You just never know what you might find in your backyard. An associate professor of anthropology named Charles Golden found the long-lost capital of an old Maya kingdom just sitting unexplored in the backyard of a cattle rancher's field in Mexico. Golden and a team of colleagues began excavating the site in early June 2018, and so far they have pulled out a treasure trove of artifacts. They found monuments depicting battles and rituals, artwork showing mythical water serpents and legendary gods, and they even found the remains of a pyramid, a ball court, and a royal palace. But what makes this discovery so strange is the simple fact that it was just sitting in a farmer's field. While the archaeologists were doing their investigation, they had cows grazing just a few feet from their dig site. They also had to make sure that the animals didn't run over their discoveries or accidentally fall into the deep pits they were digging. I'm sure the cows just wondered what they were doing in their field. As for the ancient kingdom itself, the archaeologists believe it was probably settled in 750 BC and occupied for at least 1,000 years. They believe it to be the capital of the lost kingdom of Sakzi, which until this discovery was largely regarded as a myth. Ancient footprints. In 2016, in the beautiful and vast Grand Canyon National Park, a Norwegian geology professor was hiking with his students when he stumbled upon a rather shocking discovery. Sitting right next to the trail, in plain view of everyone walking by, was a random boulder with a fossilized reptile footprint in it. As a geology professor, this guy was able to immediately identify that he had stumbled upon something great, and thinking quickly, he sent a photo to his colleague, a paleontologist from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. His colleague said that he may have discovered the oldest vertebrate tracks in the Grand Canyon. Not only that, but the footprints in the boulder might be the oldest footprints on Earth of an egg-laying reptile. The reason the boulder was there at all was that it apparently fell from a nearby cliff and crashed to the canyon floor. Using new scientific techniques, researchers were able to date the rock at being somewhere around 313 million years old. However, it's not clear as of right now what kind of animal made the prehistoric tracks. The tracks appear to be from some kind of tetrapod, likely one of the earliest reptiles to ever walk across this part of the Earth, predating the dinosaurs by millions and millions of years. Penguin mummies. Researchers have found mummies of lots of different things, from humans to lions to baboons. But in Antarctica, researchers have been finding a different kind of mummy. With the ice melting, all kinds of fascinating stuff has been showing up on the southernmost continent. One of the coolest discoveries made recently were the mummies of penguins, which were found at a remote area of Antarctica called Cape Irizar, overlooking the Ross Sea. These mummified penguins were discovered in 2016 by a team of investigators and scientists from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. The team was pretty confused because there was no record of a penguin colony here since it was discovered in 1901. The mummified penguins were found inside of rocky mounds which they had used hundreds of years ago as nests. It seems that the penguins must have died, been covered over in the snow, and preserved. Now that the snow is melting, the penguins are being revealed in nearly the same condition as the day they died. When they sent samples back to the lab, they discovered that they dated from about 800 years to 5,000 years ago. Prehistoric monster shell. A local man spending Christmas Day at the river in Argentina recently stumbled upon the monstrous shell of a prehistoric beast. What he first mistook for a dragon egg hidden in the muddy bank of the river near his farm turned out to be the gargantuan shell of a prehistoric giant armadillo. This creature is known properly as a glyptodont, and it went extinct thousands of years ago. But according to a paleontologist from the Bernardino Natural Sciences Museum, these huge shells are actually quite common all throughout Argentina. These animals could be found all over the place and are the ancient ancestors of our modern armadillos. They had enormous round shells that weighed up to 1 ton. If you stumble across one of these shells, you can see how you might think it was a preposterously large egg of an ancient monster. Graffiti in the Holy Sepulchre. Just recently, when a rock leaning against a wall in a dark corner of Jerusalem's Holy Sepulchre building, known to locals and tourists as the Graffiti Stone, was inspected by 2 curious Israeli researchers. Apparently, this giant slab of stone had been sitting there for years, being passed by visitors every day with nobody knowing what it really even was. Then, when the 2 Israeli researchers came along and decided to look at the other side, they were shocked to find that the artifact was once used as part of a high altar by medieval crusaders. As it turns out, the stone was designed similar to the style of Roman altars in the 12th century. The ancient altar was probably used by the Crusaders for holding Mass, up until a huge fire happened at the church in 1808. Then the stone got buried under a new floor that was installed, and it just kind of sat forgotten until it was discovered again in 2018. 3,000-year-old cheese. A lumpy piece of cheese estimated to be over 3,300 years old has recently been uncovered inside a tomb in Egypt. Of course, this is no surprise, as the ancient Egyptians definitely had cows, sheep, and goats, and probably made their fair share of cheese and milk using the dairy. Archaeologists discovered the giant chunk of cheese inside the tomb of Ptolemais, which dates back to the 13th century BC. The discovery was published in the journal Analytical Chemistry, in which scientists detailed how they found the preserved cheese inside of a broken jar at the site. Chemists actually had to investigate the substance to confirm that it was indeed cheese. But it wasn't just any cheese. It was something known as kefir cheese, a type of liquid dairy that was traditionally served as a drink. How it didn't disintegrate into nothing over so many years is a testament to the quality of their earthenware jars. Battersea Shield. The Battersea Shield is an amazing work of art that was actually dredged up accidentally from the bottom of the River Thames in London. The Iron Age shield was made by the Celts. In the same area, workers also found large quantities of Roman and Celtic weapons. The artistry displayed on the Battersea Shield is emblematic of the Celtic Latin style of art, which is made up of intertwining circles and spiral formations along with engraving and stippling. This sheet of bronze would have covered a wooden shield that is now missing. This bronze shield facing is made from different parts of sheet bronze that are then put together with bronze rivets and enclosed in a binding strip. It also contains a great deal of red glass enamel, which the Celts were adept at using in their art. Based on dating techniques, scientists have estimated that it was probably made at some point between 350 and 50 BC. This piece of history dredged up from the channel is one of the most significant pieces of ancient Celtic art and military equipment found in Britain. It is now housed in the British Museum. Thanks for watching! Which discovery was your favorite? Which one surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon! Bye!